Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Podium Podcast. I'm Simon Hartley.
And I'm Tom May.
Over the years, I've heard hundreds, if not thousands, of people talking about the power of applying an elite sports mindset and elite sports thinking into business. And I'm a huge advocate of that idea. I really love it. But the question is how? How do athletes apply a sports mindset into business? And that's what we're here to find out. Today, we're joined by a fantastic guest, former Major League Baseball pitcher. Please welcome to the show, Mike O'Connor.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, Simon.
Very welcome. Great to have you on the show. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about your playing career, your athletic career?
Yeah, so I grew up playing a lot of different sports as a kid. Soccer, basketball, swimming, baseball, and then into high school, got more serious about baseball. Ended up playing in college at George Washington University. Played on his Division I baseball there. Got my degree in finance from George Washington, and then went on to get drafted by the Montreal Expos in 2002, and then reached the major leagues with the then Washington Nationals as the team moved from Montreal to DC, and played with several other teams, the Royals, Padres, Yankees and Twins, AAA, and also played in the major leagues with the Mets. So played 12 years total professional baseball, 4 seasons in the big leagues with the Nationals and New York Mets.
Fantastic. And even people who don't follow baseball, I'm pretty sure will recognize the words New York Yankees and New York Mets in there, amongst others. I mean, being a professional athlete comes with its challenges, I know. Were you a naturally talented player? Did this come easily to you, or were you one of those athletes that had to really work at your game?
I think everybody who gets at a level has some natural abilities, that allows them to be successful. But I think, a lot of the ones that aren't the best of the best are the ones that are able to kind of squeeze every bit of talent out of what they have. And, I felt like I had to work harder than a lot of people to, be successful and reach the big leagues everywhere I went. I went to college as a walk-on. I signed as a senior draft pick, for not for a lot of money. So, I felt like everywhere I went, I had to constantly prove myself. And, I think over time, I was able to just grind out seasons and just try to improve each year. And I think that's why I was successful.
That feeling of grinding out seasons, as you put it, Mike, do you think that improved you not only as a player but also as a person for where you are now, for example, without skipping ahead too far? But do you think that made you tougher as an individual?
Definitely. I know when I first came out of high school, I thought I was, pretty tough. And I think when I got into pro ball, the low minors are definitely mentally challenging. Getting used to playing a game pretty much every day for 5 months in a minor league season. I think just being able to just kind of focus on the things you can control and just get in the right mindset, just to compete every day. I think that type of stuff has served me well as I transitioned into the business world and in life in general.
I think there's probably not many sports, is there? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but that might not mean that there isn't one. But where you have to play so much, I can't get my head around how much baseball teams play. There isn't a time really where you can either sit back and bask in that glory, or also, if you've been on the end of a defeat or a poor performance, you don't have that much time to fix problems. You have to bounce straight back.
Definitely. I think that mindset of just being able to move on from, highs and lows quickly and just get ready for the next day. I think in other sports, it's just being, the training and focus on your practices in between the games, moving on quickly, not getting complacent. I think that's huge in every sport, but baseball for sure, just because of the amount of games you play, you just have to have a short memory.
Yeah. And I mean, over the course of like a 13-year career, I'm fairly sure you'll have hit some major setbacks along the way. Most of the athletes I know had some injuries. They were deselected. There was contract stuff. What were the major challenges that you had whilst you were playing?
I mean, I had several. 2006, I got to the big leagues, started to establish myself, and then middle of the season started having some elbow issues. Ended up finishing that season out, not really performing well, but got through the season. And then at the end of that year, ended up finding out I needed to have elbow surgery, had that done, and, missed most of 2007. Got taken off the 40-man roster that winter. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. They signed me back as a minor league free agent to come back with the Nationals in 2008, and it was just kind of, am I gonna ever get back? The thing's gonna come back, and finally that next year, things did. Velocity and just my pitches came back, but it just took longer than I thought, and I definitely dealt with other issues. 2008, was back on track, and was hoping to get called up to end the season, and I got hit with a baseball in my face, broke my orbital bone, broke my nose, and ended my season in AAA after being the top pitcher on our staff, and was going to get an opportunity to pitch some games in the big leagues in 2008 as a starter. And I don't know, just kind of changed where I was. And I mean, they're going to find, if you can't get on the field, they're going to find somebody who can. So it's just, you got to be able to stay healthy. Fortunately, the second half of my career, I think I figured some things out that I needed to do physically in order to, stay healthy throughout a season, and was able to kind of hang around for, I think 5 more years after that. So definitely some ups and downs. I mean, I think in any sport, you're going to deal with that type of stuff.
You mentioned contracts, Mike. How did you find dealing with coming to the end of a contract, or not having a contract renewed, or missing out on contracts? It's something that not sure whether those that haven't been lucky enough to play in professional sport, it's one of the really tough elements of pro sport, right? Is whether you're going to get a contract. There's always that worry: is there another one coming? How did you mentally prepare yourself for that? And also, how do you think you've benefited from being exposed to something like that now you've come out of sport?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are with baseball. I mean, when you sign a minor league contract when you get drafted. I mean, it's like a 7-year contract, but once you get put on the 40-man roster, there are some guarantees with that, but essentially it's a 1-year contract. So, I mean, every year it was just trying to get to that next year. I mean, for baseball players, until you sign a long-term contract, which very few guys do. I mean, you're basically on a 1-day contract. You got to perform every day, right? So I think,
wow.
For me, I mean, there was a few years where I was, on a 40-man roster for I think 4 or 5 seasons, and you do have some guarantees with that. If they release you, you would get paid, but I mean, they can still do anything with you. So not a ton of security until you do get to that long-term contract, and that was something I never got to that position in my career. So it was pretty much a year to year, day by day, and I think just having to perform day after day and meet their expectations. I mean, I think is something most people don't understand how competitive that world is, because there's every year there's new guys coming in. There's a draft every year, so there's only so many spots. So at the end of the year, hopefully you want to still have one of those spots.
So, Simon, I was just thinking there as Mike was talking, there's been some pretty high profile cases, especially within Premier League football, whereby players have signed long-term deals, like 5-year contracts, and have been performing amazingly pre-contract. Literally, before the ink is dried on the paper, they're now performing terribly for the same team. What, like that whole mental process from your, that drives me insane. But it'd be interesting to pick your brains about why is that? Obviously, there's there's the relief of having signed the contract and having your future secure. But what's that all about?
Yeah, do you know, I think a lot of it's almost like traditional newspaper deadlines. I think, people work so hard up to the deadline that when they get the other side of it, they take this massive sigh of relief and often take their foot off the gas. And I do think momentum plays a huge part in this. Once you start taking your foot off the gas, it doesn't take long for the momentum to disappear. And then you've got to work quite hard to get it back again. And some people do need almost like that injection of adrenaline, that sort of the prospect of losing the contract or winning the contract to really sharpen their focus. But yeah, I mean, I'm a great believer that great athletes, that momentum is sort of, or the motivation and the focus and everything, it comes from within. You shouldn't need too much of an external prod, if you know what I mean. And I, the great athletes I've seen have remained consistent because it has come from within. The other thing that I wanted to ask Mike about on this one, did you find that either you found yourself becoming more resilient through that process, or you took a change of perspective? The highs weren't as high and the lows weren't as low. You sort of managed to navigate within the mid ground. So when your great day didn't send you to the top of the mountain, and the worst day didn't send you to the bottom of the trough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that I got better with over time. I mean, I think when I was looking back when I was younger, I'd have one good game, one bad game, and like just being consistent with your routines, the work in between, in between games, the pregame work, just being more consistent with how I prepared on a daily basis. I think that focus is what allows you to be consistent, and I think that's what allows people to be at the highest level in their sport, is just having that focus day after day, being able to put streaks together of really good games and not having a letdown in that. I mean, that, like, as a starting pitcher, you know, every day is different. You have your starting day, and then you would start every fifth game. So it would be a 5-man rotation. So, this day you do this, and just building that routine to prepare for that. Out of the bullpen, it's obviously a little different because you're more on call every game, and being able to prepare before the game, knowing what you needed to do to be ready to pitch effectively every day. I think a lot of it is just the consistency with routines and how you prepare every day, and that's something that I got a lot better with over time.
Mm.
Has the understanding, and I guess the theme behind routine, stuck with you?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's huge. I mean, I have a 8-year-old daughter, and trying to just get her, to be in not as rigid as you would be on that type of schedule, but just having routines, making sure she's, eating before school, going to bed I think that's important for everybody, right? That little stuff is what's going to make you, feel prepared, feel good going into the day. I mean, I think a lot of that is mental too, that you feel like you've done everything that you could to prepare, and you feel confident. You're not, oh man, I'm not ready for this. Like, as you're coming into a game or something like that. I think it's just having those routines and feeling comfortable with the situation you're going into.
Interesting, just to pick your brains a bit about this transitional piece. Sorry, Simon, before you jump ahead with a far more interesting question. The element of routine. That's something when I transitioned out of playing rugby, I found the routine was something that I took almost safe. I felt safe in a routine, so I got up, I had my breakfast or whatever. I went training. Training was something I had control of. When I'd moved into an environment where I'd lost complete control of where I was, or I wasn't completely comfortable with where the new environment I found myself in. Did you have a routine that you tried to stick to during that transition process, and how did that help you?
I mean, I think that was the hardest thing. I think when you're in sports, the military, or something where there's a lot of structure in place. I mean, every day in baseball, you'd leave the field and be like, all right, I need to be here the next day at this time. And then when you get there, it's laid out where you need to be. Somebody puts that structure in place for you. So I think when I played, I didn't realize how rigid that was, and but once you're done, you're kind of out on your own, figuring it out. I mean, I think the one thing, when I finished, I mean, it was tough, for a few months as I tried to figure out what was next. But I mean, I think just trying to stay, you know, in some type of routine, having some structure, some goals, short-term goals, what I want to, what do the next day. One thing that helped me was just trying to stay on there was a period right after I stopped playing that wasn't doing much physical activity. And then I realized, I felt better once I got back into, workouts and things like that, just to kind of have that mental clarity from that gives you. So I think, that was something that helped me initially, and then trying to figure out what the next thing was.
Yeah. This isn't necessarily a more interesting question than that one, because I think that was a really good one. But obviously, you've moved into business now. Can you tell us a little bit about the business, what your role is within the business? You said you had a finance degree, and you've moved into financial services. So, what business and what are you doing in it?
Yeah, so I work for Assured Partners. We're a insurance brokerage, national insurance brokerage. We do have offices across the world, but most of the offices are in the United States. I work with business owners and individuals on their property and casualty insurance, and then do business. A lot of my role is business development. Helping us find new clients to work with, and kind of just letting people know about the services that we provide, and how we could be helpful to their business or personally with the services that we provide.
Cool. And when you think about your athletic mindset, how much of that have you found translates really naturally into life in business, into being successful in business, or helps you be successful in business?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mindset is similar. I mean, in sales, I mean, you just need to keep pushing every day, right? I mean, you need to have a focus, a goal. I have a goal of what I want to do this year, long term, what I wanted to do. Short term goals, long term goals, and just that ability to, be persistent, show up every day with a good attitude, wanting to keep learning. I've been in this business 5.5 years. I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot in that time, but I still don't know everything. And I think that, that mindset in baseball was, kind of what allowed me to hang around for 12 years. I mean, how I finished the pitcher I was at the end of my career and the pitcher I was at the beginning was not the same, right? So I was evolving with how I pitched, the pitches I threw. I mean, I think that changed. And I think in the business world, I mean, it's just as competitive. I mean, it's a super competitive business. There's people have a lot of options of where they can go for financial services or their insurance. So, it's a highly competitive business. So I think, just having the toughness to go against, sometimes, larger brokers, sometimes smaller, just that, just competing every day. I mean, I think in having, the ability to, if something doesn't work out for one reason or another, being able to get up the next day and move on from it, and keep going each day, and trying to get to where I want to be.
One thing, Mike, a comparison, I guess it would be between the US and the UK. Here in the UK, a lot of the player bodies try and develop the athletes so that they are more skilled, better equipped to make that transition into the workplace. How does that work in the US? Is there any help at all? Is there a focus on it?
There is. I mean, I think some sports are a little further ahead than others. I mean, Major League Baseball, has resources in place. I mean, a lot of these started right when I finished playing, so they're kind of evolving. But I was really struggling for probably 2 years, and Major League Baseball Players Association had a career transition program they launched. They helped me put a plan in place, to figure out what I wanted to do long term. And I don't think it was perfect at that time because they had just started it, but it really did at least give me, some resources to just things that I just hadn't been trained how to do, how to interview for jobs, how to, as an athlete, I think a lot of times we don't do a great job of like selling ourselves. I mean, we kind of just let our performance speak for us and not kind of, talk ourselves up. It's, about the team and things like that. And in business, I mean, it still is about the team, but you have to be able to self-promote yourself. And that was something that I didn't really, understand how to do right away. It just wasn't something I was comfortable, but in, interviews and things like that, that's what, people want to hear, and how you need to do certain things to, get hired for jobs, and make them feel comfortable that you can be successful. So that was, I mean, having somebody teach me how to do that, I think was huge. I am also involved with a organization. It's in the U.S. and Canada. This One for All. I just started, with their team, trying to help, athletes transition. I think there's a huge opportunity for corporations, businesses, to hire these guys. I mean, everybody's looking for good employees. I think where a lot of organizations have fallen flat, though, is they just, don't help these guys transition, just kind of put them out in a role that they're probably not prepared for. And a lot of these guys that have been in sports and highly successful, I mean, they didn't get there by themselves. They were coached, right, to be good at those sports, and they just need a little bit of help. And I think there is a lot of opportunity for these guys. I mean, these are people that, in businesses that it's hard to differentiate yourself, could, bring something to the table because people know who they are, right? I mean, just people want to work with them. I think there is a huge opportunity. I mean, there's a few industries that I think have done an okay job, but I think really with, where business is, there is a huge opportunity for companies to figure out a way to bring these guys into their companies, train them, and help them be successful, and the company to be successful because of that. So I think that's something that I'm working on with this group, and hopefully we'll have some things roll out in the next, year or so with that. But it's something I'm passionate about. I think it's a huge issue that a lot of guys struggle with. But yeah, I was fortunate. Major League Baseball does have some resources in place, and they're continuing to build that program out. And so yeah, no, that was definitely helpful when I was trying to figure those things out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as you said, there are some skills that you need in business that sport doesn't really give you. And selling yourself. I mean, in baseball, as a pitcher, I guess you sell yourself every time you throw the ball, and so that sort of does the job for you. But there's a completely different skill set often in business. What did you feel unprepared for when you walked into the world of business? Sort of particularly in those early years when the learning curve is almost vertical.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think it prepares you for the mindset, but to me, it was like learning a new language, right? I come into a new industry. I mean, insurance. I've been in this business 5.5 years. The first 2 years, I mean, I didn't really. I was just thrown into a sales role, and trying to bring in new business, but didn't understand the product, didn't understand how it worked. I think at this point, I mean, I've learned a lot of that, but it's definitely like learning a new language over and over again. So I think anybody that's been successful and had to start over, I think I think it's really tough to kind of just go back to, the beginning again, and being willing to learn all the basics, have somebody spend the time to teach you that. And then you have to kind of put the time in on your own to want to learn that. So I think,
You come out of a sport where you're a C-suite exec,
yeah,
into a different world where you're like, right, I've got to learn from scratch. It is really hard.
Yeah, I mean, when I've got into this, I mean, I'm, working with kids that were just getting out of college, or, and I'm, in my mid 30s, had played in the big leagues, had been successful, and, just you got to pay your dues again. Right. And just trying to put your ego aside, I think is really hard for people. I mean, I really struggled with it for a few years until I just like, I just got to come to terms with starting over. I think where I struggled was that I felt like, something was owed to me, or that I could skip, steps 1 and 2 and jump right into, this piece, because of, success in something else. And, once I kind of came to peace with that wasn't really the case. I think things got a lot better for me.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting that the almost like the huge gap between being great at something one day and being an absolute novice the next day. I think it's a massive, massive challenge. One of the things that actually I picked up when I read a transcript of a little interview you did, you were talking about how you develop entrepreneurial skills being an athlete. You almost are an entrepreneur being an athlete. Do you think that? Well, can you kind of explain what you meant by that, but also how it helped you when you moved into business?
Yeah, I mean, I think as an athlete, you kind of are your own business, right? And you're putting in all this time and energy. It's like you're like a startup, and you're trying to get to a publicly traded company. So I think the time you put into it, the time and energy, and just perform. Everything's on you, right? I mean, at the end of the
Mm.
day, if I did bad, it was my it was on me. Um, and just learning how to do that, and being willing to take a risk, and betting on yourself. I mean, I think that's something when I meet entrepreneurs. I mean, that's they believe in their product, they believe in themselves, that they can build this huge company, and why people should want to work for them, and why people should you know give them money to help them build this company when they're out raising. I mean, I think that same mindset is why a lot of athletes are successful. So I mean, I
Mm.
definitely think the athlete mindset definitely is helpful in transitioning to that type of world.
You mentioned removing the ego, Mike. I want you would have no doubt picked a lot of brains within the role that you find yourself in to try and upskill yourself. Did you find that there was a lot of people from the corporate world picking your brains about what you could bring from sport into that business world, or was it this is how we work? You just need to get up to speed.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people think, as an athlete, you can just go to your teammates and people like that, and work with them on certain things. That is a piece of what I do. But a lot of those guys have been working with people that do things that I do or other people do in the financial services space for a while. So it's hard to disrupt those things. I mean, I think a
Yeah,
lot of people just see on TV the money that guys have made, and think, because you're a player, you have access to all these guys, um, which you do, but it's hard. It is really hard, a year after you're finished playing, to come to them and say, "Hey, I'm doing this. I want to work with you on this." When they know, 6 months earlier you're still playing baseball, and they've been working with somebody on that for 10 years. So they might not always feel comfortable with that right away. But yeah, no, I think a lot of companies look at the athletes as somebody that can get them into doors. Um, but yeah, no, I think a lot of times how they how they view what you can do, is can be a challenge, and the expectations that they have for how quickly you could do that is difficult for a lot of guys too.
Yeah, yeah. To flip it on its head slightly, so we've been talking about how sports thinking translates into business. What have you found in business that actually elite sport could learn from?
I mean, I think with business, I mean, the thing you can do it so much longer, right? In sports, as you start to get better mentally, physically, you start to get worse, right? So, I think like your mind gets better, but you get a little slower, right? It's just it's harder. Business, I mean, these guys. So, I mean, a lot of the best people are in their 60s, 70s, just because they have so much experience, have seen so many more things. It's hard. It'd be hard for me to say. And I mean, I think there's so much in common with the people that are successful in both: the competitiveness, just the drive every day, their work ethic. I mean, I think there's so much that's in common. It would be hard for me to say something from business. That athletes, I mean, I think they're both, to me, I kind of look at them as the same. The people that are super successful, just have the mind for it, and kind of are thinking on a different level. I think than a lot of people that are just having some success, but maybe maybe not the top performers.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, when I look at this stuff, I tend to look at it's not sports thinking, it's not business thinking, it's human thinking, as it were. So I think you're right. It does translate backwards and forwards really easily. Tom, you have some quick fire questions to wrap us up.
I do, yeah. So, Mike, every podcast we have 4 questions that we ask athletes, former athletes, about, and they're quick fire. So I'll rattle through them. The first one is: if you hadn't been a professional athlete, what would you have been? And is there another vocation that took your interest? That's 2 questions in one, really. But
I went to college as a business major. I mean, I think, business is something that I've always, been interested in. I mean, I think, the role I'm in now is probably something similar, some type of financial services industry. So I think something similar to what I'm in now.
Who is the person you admire most in sport and in business?
In sport, I mean, I think any of the guys that have played for so long. I mean, I just finished watching this Tom Brady documentary. I mean, for him to be able to stay at the top of his game into the mid-40s. I mean, I think, these guys that play 20 plus years and still have that attention to detail, still are always in the right place on the field. I think, Tom Brady's somebody that, I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, so he's had some tough wins against us in some big games, but he's somebody I've always admired. I think just what he's doing right now is incredible. In business, there's so many different people. I mean, I think some of the big CEOs, I mean, just, why they've been so successful, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, just reading stuff about them. I think those are 2 guys that, seem to pop up all over the place.
Yeah. Well, let's create a scenario here. Tom Brady's come along and given you some of his funds to invest. What are you going to invest it in?
I mean, I think in the industry that I'm in right now, there is a huge opportunity in the insurance brokerage world. There's a lot of people retiring. I mean, the startup world is not a world that I know anything about, but I know, or have run any of those type of businesses. I mean, I think there is an opportunity in insurance. I mean, I think the company I work with is great, but obviously everybody's dream is to have their own company at some point. A lot of times, I think there's something you could build in this industry with some younger talent that I think could have a lot of upside, and that's a business that I know. So that's where I would go.
Like it. Well, if Tom Brady's listening, then he can just send some cash over. That'd be great. You can only watch one film for the rest of your life. What would it be?
One film. I mean, I'm a baseball guy. I mean, my top movies, Major League or Field of Dreams. One of those movies.
Brilliant. So yeah, we've been through. I thought there were 4, but there's actually 5 within there. So we've nicked another one off you. But thanks very much for those.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. So that's all for today, folks. Thank you very, very much, Mike Connor. Thank you very, very much, Tom May. Guys, stay tuned for further episodes. In the next couple of episodes, we've got some fantastic guests like Olympic champion Rebecca Adlington, like rugby league legend John Wilkin, and many, many more. So stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Podium Podcast. Mike shared loads of great insights during this episode with us, but there were a couple that really stood out to me. He talked about the importance of consistency and persistence. The ability to show up every day with great attitude and to compete every day. And to do that, of course, there are a few fundamental things that we need. In his words, we need a short memory. We need to be able to, yes, learn from things, but also to put them behind us. Not every day is going to go our way, and we need to be able to move on. He talked about not allowing the highs to become too high or the lows to become too low. And also said that to drive consistency in performance, we need consistent preparation and routines. Of course, all this stuff sounds obvious, but bizarrely, it's pretty rare. I hope that's helpful. See you in the next episode.